So while we got a moment, if everyone can kind of mute their phones.
I'm muting myself, by the way. Doctors are in and out.
Mike cannot mute himself.
Okay. So good morning, everyone. The planning board meeting of November 14, 2024. Let's do a quick roll call here. Margaret, can I start with you? Okay.
Margaret Turner, alternate.
Okay.
Alan Berko, alternate.
Rich Smith, alternate.
Bill Spence, member.
John Racine, member.
Morgan Dean, member.
Catherine Brennan, member.
Rich Rita, select board ex officio.
Mike.
Wilson, alternate.
Mike Coppell, member.
Okay, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay.
And is Zoom a vote?
Yes, Zoom can
Yeah.
vote, but they can't count for a quorum.
Right, so we need,
That's official. We need 7. We got 7. And then if Rich leaves early, I'm gonna
You have six.
see.
You have 6.
You have 6 in here.
6 in here.
Three alternates.
We need 7 in here.
Doesn't count as a quorum, but he can vote.
Well, Mike is here, so he's
Oh.
7.
Yes, sorry, yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay,
You have
2,
four.
3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, my Mike makes it.
okay,
You can count the person who's on.
Yes,
Except for
as long
quorum.
as there's a quorum in here.
As long as there's a quorum in here,
Mhm.
we only have 6 in here.
That's a quorum. A quorum is 4.
Oh, okay, thank you.
okay, so let's take a quick look at the draft minutes. And see if we come up with anything.
I
Kathy?
just had a question about line 77, the calendar review. We had discussed having a site plan meeting on November 21st. I don't know if that was tentative or not. I had it on my calendar, so I don't know if that should under calendar review. But that was the only.
When I,
saw.
there, it wasn't like in stone, so I didn't put it in there because it wasn't official.
Okay.
That's why I didn't include it. It changed because we haven't fully,
Um,
I can put it in a few guys.
why don't we change it to the 21st? And,
What's that?
It's an Adam shoot.
yeah,
No, I think you should put the tentatives in because that way
Okay.
it's on the record.
Hey, Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Secretary.
line 52. It says, remove the section on recreational vehicle entirely. I suggest to insert the phrase from the planning board ordinances. And remove them from what?
From the zoning ordinance.
The planning board zoning ordinances.
Just zoning, right? Just zoning. They're not out there. They're not.
Well, they could be, because it's going to be moved to the select board jurisdiction. I just wanted to make clear, they're removing them from what?
Zoning ordinance.
Okay, so it has to say that.
Shouldn't it be in there though, physically?
Yeah, I'm just saying, but it's
Zoning ordinance.
just zoning, that's all I need to say. It's
Yeah,
zoning.
yeah.
Got it.
Anything else, Bill?
Yeah, line 69,
59, yeah.
it's a small item, but noting, we need a that in there. Noting that the AARP program is within, and I would say within the jurisdiction of the select board. Rather than in the select board.
Okay.
And then as we go on with that sentence, the pedestrian study, I think we should insert the word survey there.
Okay.
And then line 71 after and, there should be another that. And that discussions are ongoing regarding da da da. Okay. No other, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Kathy, anything catch your eyes?
Is that one thing?
Okay, good. Is this AI generated?
Both, I still listen to the whole recording and make
Yeah.
sure it's all, you know.
No, I think it's
Yep.
pretty good.
It is
So,
good.
It is a good, it's a super helpful tool. It cuts down the time, you know, that it takes me to do them.
Sure.
But I still just kind of, I still listen through it and make sure everything is, you know,
And you're happy with it as well?
no, I think it's a huge help. It's a good tool.
Yeah, good.
No. I'll take a moment to say, good job, Alicia.
Thank you.
Want to make a motion for the minute?
Motion to accept the minutes as amended.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Is that you, Morgan?
Yes.
You guys are so fast.
The speeding.
Okay, privilege of the floor. We have someone here who would like to speak to us. Is it Paul?
It is, yes.
Good morning, Paul.
Morning, Jim.
So tell us what you're thinking and we're gonna hear you out.
Sounds good. So just to say hello to everybody, my name is Paul Lawler, and I've been a resident of Waterloo Valley on and off since around 2008. And I've been a instructor up at the mountain since 2008. And at one time, occupant of Lenny Emery's house, that was an enjoyable experience having Margaret as my landlord. So what my thought is to just sort of give you a question, and ultimately I'm gonna look for feedback, and then just give you a background on how I sort of came to this point where I'm asking this question. And I'll just sit down and take notes, but I'm gonna pass out here that I'm discussing. I don't know if you want to pass this around, Margaret. And you'll see that there's a little X at the, near the bottom of this map.
Paul, could you hang on just 1 minute? Let everyone get a copy of it. No, copies. Right.
So the question is, so you'll see a little X and a sort of hand-drawn line there. So that's obviously part of the golf course. And my question is, if this part of the golf course is subdivided, this area along Snows Mountain Road, I'm interested in your feelings on me submitting a warrant to rezone that lands from recreational land to residential land for the purposes of building a home. And how did I get to this point? Well, if you look at, there's a lot 36 there, adjacent to the lot or that area with the X, and that's actually for sale. And I did submit an offer for that land. Actually, I think around August, and through Frank Freeman, and he heard back that the owner was going to give me a counteroffer, which he never did. But I did spend a lot of time looking at that land, and actually one of the issues with that land is it has a main low area that is drainage, so it's unbuildable. So my thought was I'd like to build, if possible, on the eastern side of lot 36, but the building envelope is very narrow. So I approached Craig Larson, golf course owner, just with the sort of possibility of him, would he be interested in selling me a small piece of land adjacent to lot 36? So there'd be enough room to put a house on, so some flat grounds. And so I had a conversation with Craig a few weeks back, and as it turned out, a couple of things were going on. Craig said that he had surplus land that he was thinking of liquidating. And the second thing is he also said, yeah, Paul, at one point I was thinking of building a house on this very spot. But he decided not to because he built or he bought that property lower down on Snows Mountain Road that he's working on now. So that's some of the background. And he said, Paul, why don't you speak with the town? To see if, what the possibilities are in rezoning the land. And then if it looks like that's a possibility, then I can sell you the land, you can build a house on it. So that's sort of the background. And so at this point, that's sort of basically it. My thoughts are just to take guidance from you guys on what your feelings are on this, the possibility of doing this, and what I would need to do in advance of a warrant being submitted. So I'm kind of all ears at this point.
Well, that little piece you have the X on, is that the whole piece you would be buying?
No, so it would be the whole, that whole piece from the hand-drawn line, north and east, so that looks like an elbow.
Yeah,
But the only buildable ground really is where that X is. So
Yeah.
below that X is the Criterion Cross Country Trail.
oh, yeah,
Yeah, so it would be sandwiched between the trail and Snows Mountain Road. Below the trail, the ground gets very steep. It's not really very buildable, and I wouldn't be interested in building on that sort of north-south part of the ground because it's obviously away from the road. It's very narrow, so it's really, despite the sort of area there, that X where I've drawn is really the only place you could put a home.
and is the cross-country ski trail, you said is on that land?
It's on the, yeah, it's on the golf course land, it's below that X, so
Just
it kind
below.
of, if you look at the houses. Those three houses, lots 43 and 44,
Yeah,
Criterion Trail kind of wraps around the backs of those houses,
okay,
yeah,
And then comes down through there to the golf course
exactly,
on that sliver of land.
yeah.
You can access it from lot 35 at the bend. There's a little access path there to get on Snows Mountain Road, or you can continue down straight. And it takes you to the golf course near the fourth hole, I believe,
okay, yeah,
Fourth green.
the green, yeah. And you can then ski up and around or down, I'm not sure which way it goes.
yeah.
So yeah, there is a cross-country trail there.
So your project would not disturb that ski trail? Is that correct?
I may request if it could be moved, because the distance between Snows Mountain Road and the ski trail is pretty narrow. So I may ask if that Criterion Trail could be moved slightly, so that would accommodate the building envelope of the house.
That,
Because that's, yeah, that trail would not have anything to do with the
correct.
planning board.
The
Okay.
easement is owned by the resort, I believe, so you'd have to
Okay,
get permission from the resort. I don't know if it's specific to
It's
it's a non-specific, so it's movable.
okay.
So your proposal, Paul, is to buy all of the land that's to the right of the hand-drawn line?
Exactly, so it'd be a single subdivision with enough buildable land just to build one house, basically.
And how large is the lot?
I don't have a lot, and I know it's just myself and my girlfriend, so it would just be just a sort of a small to medium-sized house. I don't have a plan to build anything large, but I could give you more details based on your feedback, and as you continue in the process, we'd be happy to do so.
Oh, go ahead, Kathy.
I said two questions. Would you want it to be rezoned ideally LDR or HDR? What, have you given any thought of?
I would go with whatever that zoning is, LDR. Does it make a difference whether it's zoned
It does.
LDR? So can you
Yeah.
tell me the difference it would make?
HDR, you can build condominiums on it.
Okay. I wouldn't need to build condominiums and just build this single family.
LDR would make sense because you took it from the corner of the lot you're thinking of buying and draw a straight line down across that whole hook. That would just make LDR contiguous across that hook.
Yeah, so then that obviously makes the most sense. It's in keeping with the current zoning and it's in keeping with my plans.
So now how would you gain that? Sorry, Margaret, go
Yeah.
ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I think there is also an entrance to the Snows Mountain hiking trail off the back corner of
You're right.
35,
Yes, it would go across
yeah.
a portion of that hook. Taking turn. Did you say you wanted to purchase the whole area from roughly, to draw a straight line from your, say, if you were to acquire lot 36, the line to the property line to the west? You drew a straight line across to, what is that lot across the other side of rec? I can't read it. But,
So, yeah, it's
and then
from
you would
the,
just take everything up going across.
yeah, so it's from that diagonal hand drawn line to the right and then up, so east and north. With no intentions to build anywhere except for that single family home with that access.
I marked up mine, which line?
How would you access the lot?
Yeah,
There's
here.
actually, this map does not indicate it. But there's another map, I forget what that map is titled, actually, there is access directly to the rec land from the road. But it's not shown in this map, and I can provide that map to you guys after this meeting. I don't have access to it right now.
He would just apply for a driveway cut onto Snow's Mountain.
Okay.
Mhm.
Which would okay. Would that cross the trail? No.
No, according to Craig, is contrary to what and we will have, they'd have to provide us with survey information, but according to Craig, that rec land has access directly out onto Snow's Mountain Road. But they would have to show us,
Yeah, so that
because that's not what the tax map
is showing,
technically shows.
no, it shows that's lot 35.
Yeah, it shows lot 35 is having the frontage on Snow's Mountain Road, but Craig said, I don't know whether it's an easement or whether it's the actual parcel goes all the way to the road, but that could be submitted as part of the subdivision
And
application.
I did look at that map, Mark, and it looks like the lot goes to the road, or the rec land goes to the road, but you're happy to provide that map.
Where that little driveway is now? Is that?
It's at the bend.
Yeah, with that.
It's right at the bend.
Yeah, right, exactly, right at the very bends, that little sliver of lands. It looks as if, 35 and 36 are sharing that, but it's actually rec lands. It just appears to be 35 and owned by 35 and 36 on this map.
You know, if there's a surveyor stamp that shows something different, we can get the map corrected.
Okay. So what other things do we need to have Paul do to get this rolling? Any other thoughts?
Well, I mean, like, do we have to make a decision today about whether or not we're going to agree to this?
No,
Okay.
no, I think we just need more information.
John,
And Tara, go ahead.
in a way you do, because his deadline for a petitioned amendment is the day before your next meeting. I mean,
Wow.
your next
Mm.
regular meeting, it's December 11th.
Okay.
Why is there a time frame? Because
Once I put it on this,
Under
Just-
state law, there's deadlines for filing a petition amendment.
okay, so if you want it, okay.
So if the
Well-
planning board said you're not gonna put it recommended as one of your amendments, I haven't seen it, so I don't know if it would be considered spot zoning or if it makes some logical sense to you. But if you decided you didn't want to recommend it as one of your amendments, he can do a petition amendment under the law, but he needs to file it with the select board by December 11th.
Okay.
Otherwise, he has to wait one more year.
Right.
So if we look back at the housing opportunities grant and all the information it gave us, we are missing middle housing. We are not missing single family homes from our housing stock. So if we need more middle housing and we're going to open up rec land for that, why would we open it to one person when we clearly need multiple people, multiple lots?
Well, I don't think this is all buildable to.
Yeah, But if we're gonna be in the business of opening rec land and changing it for one family at a time, why wouldn't we want to take a different angle? Because the need is obvious.
Well, I could certainly say that there's no way the town, in my opinion, is gonna approve HDR between two LDR lots
Mhm.
on
Right.
Snows Mountain Road on this particular case.
And would they approve
You
an
have a
LDR?
larger, you have a larger question. It makes a certain amount of sense to me that you're making contiguous. It's not used. There are a couple easements for trails that go across it. And that the purchaser, if this purchase were to occur, the purchaser would have to work with the owners of those easements to build whatever they wanted to build on it, but it makes sense to put two LDR pieces together if the owner of that rec land says it's completely of no use to him, but that's not the question you're asking.
Correct.
Right.
How does Paul have standing to come and Tara to ask us to make a recommendation when he's not technically the owner of the land right now?
Great question.
Shouldn't it be Craig saying, I wanna, and you know what I'm saying?
Craig has submitted subdivision plans.
Yeah, it's not like a subdivision application, though. Anybody can ask for a zoning change.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, it would be weird for the planning board to recommend it without something in writing or the owner coming in person.
Yeah.
Tara,
I have a question, actually, now that I'm out of the doctor's office and on my way to another one. The question I would ask is this something that should he want to, and we want more information, is that something we can do as a Zoom meeting, a special Zoom meeting?
No, New Hampshire state law requires you to have 4 members in the meeting room.
Okay, well, we could have a special meeting anytime now between December 11th, should we want to.
Yeah, I mean, we expect you're probably gonna have one in a week anyway to talk about site plan regulations.
So why could we not do it at that meeting?
Yeah, you could. I just said, I was just pointing out that his options are closed the day before your next regular meeting.
I understand, but is that an option that is amenable to him? Bring all the other information that we would want.
Yeah, I'd be happy to bring more information if Ali would like to see more information. It would also give me information that would be provided in advance of the December 11th meeting.
Mr. Chairman, is that something we would like to add to that agenda?
Could I ask a question first along this line? What we're discussing here is a request for a recommendation from the planning board. The requester can still go forward with a petition warrant article regardless of whether the planning board makes a recommendation. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, it goes forward with noted that the planning board doesn't recommend it.
Yeah, but see, that's bad.
Right.
No,
And,
I mean,
and either way, the planning board has to have a public hearing on it.
Right.
And why we planners hate petition amendments is the wording of them is often technically incorrect, and then you end up with a dilemma because you aren't allowed to change the wording of a petition amendment.
But
So-
he could go forward with a petition amendment regardless of the board's opinion on the matter.
Say that again?
He could go forward with a petition amendment for town meeting 2025, regardless of the board's position on the matter.
Yeah, it just gets noted on the warrant what the board's position is.
Right.
On a petition warrant, I don't believe, at least we never did as a select board, have to make a recommendation. we had a choice as to whether put down whether we were recommending or not recommending.
Yeah, the state law requires this for the planning board.
Yeah, and my question again is the subdivision in process at this point in time?
We don't have an application. yet.
Okay, so there's no application for a subdivision. So it seems to me that until the subdivision happens, we can't say what it is that we're going to do with this property or what our recommendation is.
Why is that? The zoning line can cross, and often does cross property, divide a piece of property.
I kind of, to Morgan's point, like, I feel like this is or at least since I've been here, a new topic. And I would like to learn a little more about it. I feel, I mean, everything you've said makes sense. I mean, it makes sense. I feel weird about, the property owner and then there's no, subdivision isn't here.
Yeah, Craig is working with an engineer to subdivide the land. now.
Okay, but I mean, as far as really, putting forth the paperwork and doing all of that, because I think that would help me a little
Oh,
more.
of course, that'll definitely have to be
You know.
available, that information for you before the December 11th meeting. I understand that completely.
And if we had to, if it has to say what the planning board, Tara's stance is, could it be inconclusive? I mean, does it have to be a yes or a no? Can it be that we, is there a middle ground that we just didn't have enough information? Because I agree that if we said no, that it's kind of has a negative connotation, which may not be our intent either, so.
I'll have to relook at the wording, I'm sorry.
Okay,
I mean, I would think it would be a no if we were not comfortable with the no at this time. And an explanation that we don't have enough information to determine whether or not the planning board could support this.
Yeah,
Not that it's an outright
so
rejection.
today,
It is late in, problem is it's late in the zoning amendment season, if I can put it that way, if that's making sense. It doesn't preclude you from going ahead anyway and putting a petition warrant article in front of the town to do this.
It does say a notation on the ballot stating the planning board's approval or disapproval shall immediately follow the question's description. So yes, it has to be a yes or no.
So, we could potentially say yes, or we could potentially say no. In either case, for no, it could be, there wasn't time for us to consider it, there was nothing in front of us to consider it. Or it's no, because we don't think it should be done, period.
Okay, so which of the two is it?
Well, I think that's what we're trying to determine here, whether we want to make a recommendation.
Why not be real clear with him on what additional information you need
wait a minute, hold up,
by next week's meeting?
Tara, hold up for a minute. We're talking over each other, so I didn't hear a word you said. Tara, can you go ahead and say that again?
Well, it seems an easy next step would be to be clear with him of what additional information you want for next week's meeting.
And
Right.
Margaret?
That is my suggestion.
Wait a minute, Mike, hold it. And Margaret,
And my feeling is that we shouldn't be even considering, I mean, we can table it until a subdivision actually occurs and then have our discussion, but I don't think, and tabling it at least says we haven't closed the door on it,
right,
but we need the subdivision to occur before we have a final decision on that.
agreed.
John,
So-
I think that's backwards, Margaret. That they have no reason to invest in a surveyor to do a subdivision until they know it could be rezoned.
Today, Paul is just seeking information on how he should pursue this. If we need an extra meeting, which we're gonna have one anyways, I think, we can include you in it. Mark, go ahead.
Would the board be satisfied if Craig sent you something that he is in process of doing the
Yes.
subdivision? Does
Yes.
that help
That would.
give you some information. I mean, we cannot obviously finish a subdivision prior to December 12th. Or December 11th. That's not gonna happen. But if he's in the process, this certainly, like Tara just said, gives Craig an indication whether or not the subdivision makes sense.
Right,
But if he's told you and Craig provides you with a map, hey, I'm doing a subdivision this way,
right.
then at least you would know that.
So if we could bring that map into next week's meeting.
Yeah, because right now, you're in front of us and Craig's not, we don't even know if Craig is gonna do this, so. We need Craig to give us information also,
Sure. So that would be the map.
yeah.
Yeah, I think we'd like
Or
to
a
hear from
statement of
him.
his intent,
Yeah, we need him,
or at least a statement of his intent.
yeah.
Yes,
a statement.
either he's here or he gives us a letter, something to indicate that he's on board with this, that he wants this done, and that the process is proceeding.
Okay,
Rezoning is, it's a major step. It's not something that we're going to say, oh, well, we made a mistake and we're going to send it back the other way. Once it's done, it's done. So I don't think we're going to step into this without satisfactory information. That is, we have to know what we're doing before we rezone property.
yeah, so if within the next week, I come back with a map and at the very least a statement from Greg
Mhm.
regarding his intent, combination with what I've already told you, will that be sufficient for you to make a recommendation, yes or no?
I think so.
Okay, so we'll wait till next week.
Oh,
20,
we discuss a little more.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, but I think Morgan's got another point on the floor, which, do we want it LDR?
Do you want to go down this path?
Right, so say Craig's saying he has surplus land and he wants to liquidate. So if he decides that he doesn't want to run the golf course anymore and he wants to start selling off pieces, we've already done one, if that's how we go on this. So why wouldn't we do the others? You have no further standing, in my opinion, to say, well, we did it for Paul, but we're not gonna do it for the rest of the people because we still want to maintain rec land, right? We don't need more $1 million single family homes. We need more rec land.
I think that's Tara's point about spot zoning. Tara, is that correct?
So I have the map in front of me now, and because it sits between two LDRs, I mean, I wouldn't see it as spot zoning. I don't think it would be
Okay.
challenged as spot zoning because because it has a logic to it in terms of your overall zoning map.
What's spot zoning?
It's taken a lot and zoning it different for one person when it really doesn't go with your overall zoning scheme.
Okay. So
Yeah.
this,
Which I think is what
okay.
you were
In other words,
arguing.
this particular
No.
property,
Mhm.
I think because it's sandwiched between LDRs, everything around the territory is LDR.
Yep.
But your point is that when property becomes available, we should consider what the zoning could be.
Yes.
In this case, I don't think the town would approve it, and I don't think it makes sense to try to put HDR in between LDR lots, especially
No.
especially at this edge of the town's
Yeah, the
land.
limit.
No, I
don't
agree
think
with
that's
that.
what Morgan was
So-
arguing.
No, what I'm arguing is that you open up a can of worms.
Yeah.
When you
Why
rezone
not
rec
other,
land.
why not other bits and pieces?
Right, he
Division of lot.
could sell off
Right.
any little part of this if
Yeah.
But
if
that's
he
the
wanted
nature
to.
of
And
the beast.
Right,
well, it's zoned rec because we wanted to keep open space too.
Yes.
So that's another consideration as well.
Yeah, do we need
Yeah.
all of it to be rezoned LDR? Does it all need to be private property, or is some of it, that's your point, correct?
Well, yeah, or even at all, right.
Was there, does
I mean,
anybody,
it's used rec land.
Right.
you know.
does anybody know what the logic behind creating this? Is it just old Waterville Valley logic, whatever that is at the time? Do you have this little
Piece, yeah.
Yeah.
That's
between
how-
two LDRs? Was it perhaps the get the easements for,
I mean, I'd
You might have
look
to ask
at
Bill
it.
Cannon.
Yeah.
nobody knows.
That's a real
So there's
question.
no record to provide
But it is used, right? There is a
the upper criterion
upper criterion and the hiking
and
trail,
a Snows Mountain hiking trail
which,
go through those.
which would not be necessarily impacted heavily based on what you've said to us.
It's gonna be no building behind lot 35, just in the area where, yeah. so
Where
it's just gonna
criterion
stay
is.
forested.
But the cross,
And my discussions with Craig are, he has long-term plans at the golf course to continue to improve the golf course. He doesn't have any plans to sell any other lands at the golf course. But I'm sure he could answer that question, you guys as well. But that's what I got from my discussions with Craig. It's just this section here, sandwiched in between the residential lots.
It may also be that the house owners there wanted to have some forest behind their houses.
But they still would, right? I mean, this could be subdivided any number of ways. You could subdivide it for several of these properties to extend their
Mhm.
property line to the National Forest line, which is the eastern side, right? So each one of these properties, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them,
Yeah,
could potentially get in on a subdivision.
that's actually 6 even.
6,
Yeah, 34, 30. 34,
wouldn't
35.
they have to be notified? Is that,
What's the abutter rule in this situation?
The butters will be notified
Okay.
if there's a subdivision.
Because like-
application made.
because like Rich just said, they may want to buy part of it. And
Extend
That's the
out there.
property owner's issue. The property owner is gonna submit a subdivision plan.
Right,
Whether he creates one lot or whether he adds to other lot, that's his choice to do that.
but I think it does come down to
yeah,
Morgan's question, do we want to go down this path of rezoning?
Right.
This, a portion, for all the logic that seems to be here, recommending yes. And then let the town decide whether to rezone it, right? We don't rezone, the town decides, and then the property owners can decide. First of all, whether they support that, and second, if they do they want to also negotiate with Craig about buying a portion of this land that's now LDR that they may want for their buffer?
right,
So that it still gets back to Morgan's question.
right.
Yeah, I think that's logical that all these abutters would want a piece of it.
Mhm.
Has that occurred to you, Paul? That is, what you've stated is that you want to buy all of this land from Craig.
Yes,
Have you discussed piecing it, that is dividing it into other segments that would be purchased by the abutting landowners? In other words, have you talked to any abutting landowners?
no, I haven't, so are you saying subdividing, if Craig subdivides the lands? I mean, Craig is subdividing land according to his goals, which is to, in this particular case that we're discussing, one plans to sell me the land so I can build a house, so do you mean, have I approached the other abutting property owners? I
Mhm.
have the property, I don't own the property,
No, that's correct.
so no, I haven't.
Well, this really gets to Margaret's question of what is the subdivision plan? Whether it's backwards or not, it's another question. And with what does Craig intend to say that whole,
Yes.
as opposed to subdividing that into 4 or 5?
Greg has submitted a plan to, in the case of me wanting to build a house, just subdivide it into one piece of ground, and I would build a house on it.
The whole, this whole hook,
Yes.
that's what we're talking about.
Okay.
Marcia, you had a question?
I just think they're two separate
Right,
questions.
they are.
You don't have a subdivision plan in
Right.
front of you.
Right,
And so the question is, from where that hand-drawn line is, north and east, rezoning that.
What does the
potentially
board
to
recommend?
LPR.
Right.
what's a recommendation on that?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so,
Knowing that the intention is to build
knowing of some sort
Sort
of
of-
subdivision.
some sort of
would be
subdivision. And,
Right, and I think that we need to think about this and have him come back, cause it's just like, bam, we knew nothing about it an hour ago and now, or half an hour ago.
Can I just, John?
Yeah, go ahead,
I
Tara.
think you're kind of going down a good path of thinking about the possibilities, because if it's rezoned, there's no guarantee it will be just annexed to lot 36. Someone could Craig could next come in with a subdivision application to make this new piece of LDR several lots with an access through one of those other lots potentially. So you need to think about it in terms of how many houses could be on this land if it was LDR, not assume it's just going to be annexed to one lot and make it bigger. That's what you're saying when you make it LDR.
we have to know the lot size.
Do you know how many acres?
Yeah.
I don't know off the top of my head, but I can find that out.
That would be great.
Sure.
Couple. I
don't
mean,
need
it could
road
be at
frontage.
least 4 house lots.
Yeah,
Right,
it
From
looks
do
like,
not
my
need-
eyeballing it.
right.
yeah, it looks like it could be 2 acres, give or take.
Yeah.
Based on the plots around it,
You're cool.
which there are 5 abutters, one of which is a planning board member who's not here.
6.
Both. The DeSistos, I just looked at the GIS map, they own 43 and 44.
Oh, the same.
Okay.
But I think just to be clear, what the board is saying is that if I'm reading it correctly, if the board would like more information before making a recommendation, again, it may not be a yes, the recommendation, and also you can still go forward as a petition warrant, regardless of the board's recommendation, but it will recommend something at town meeting.
Okay, so the recommendation may or may not come at next week's. When?
The
Uh,
recommendation
21.
can't come until after the public hearing.
Right, but we need you back in here one more time
Before a public hearing?
for, well, the 21st.
And then we have to.
Before you
Oh, no.
decide if you're gonna put it forward as one of your amendments or if he has to do a petition.
That's all you're deciding on the 20.
Yeah,
Are
Okay.
you gonna do it or does he get it?
right,
Right.
because we're not gonna do anything today, we just want you to bring us some more information on that.
Okay.
And
so-
that's what you're here for, that's what you came to us for today.
Okay, so you'd like to see a subdivision map, how many acres we're talking about? A statement from Craig at the very least on his plans, accompanying the subdivision map. What else would you all need?
A potential home site, where on the land it would be.
Okay, potential home site.
And you had mentioned that you might request to move the cross-country trail. I don't know if that's been a part of, how detailed you have gone down that, but, if you've thought about that, that would be interesting to know as well, but.
Yeah, the Criterion Trail.
I
Yeah,
just,
but that
That would
easement's
be
gonna
part
go,
of the subdivision
Yeah.
Okay.
application.
Yes, you'd have to talk to the,
That's another,
yeah. but that would
Talk to the
be-
mountain about it.
concerned about.
yes.
That's another.
I suggest that trail is probably, its usefulness is starting to go away with the Rough Rider.
Mhm.
We haven't groomed that
I've noticed.
in years. So it's essentially kind of gone back into people's backyards and.
Yeah,
criteria.
I'm sure
But people may not cross country ski it. People do hike it. I hike it.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, so do I.
So there should, so the easement should continue and be memorialized.
It is.
Yeah, I
It
don't
is.
think-
Memorialized.
Yep.
Is a non-specific easement. They can put it
Non-specific.
anywhere they want.
Okay.
Who's that? The
No.
The
resort.
resort.
Mhm. The easement's in favor of the resort.
Rob Wilson, did I see your hand up? Did you have anything?
No, I'm good, John.
Okay.
Is there
Ta-
anything, I'm sorry, John, go ahead.
I was gonna say, Tara, any other thoughts on this for us to consider?
No,
Okay, Paul, go ahead.
So when would I come back? What day, what time, what day, when?
So we're trying to decide if we're gonna have a meeting on November 21 for another situation we
Okay.
have going. If we do, we'll include you in that meeting.
boy, John, at this point with it already being 9:15 and you haven't even gotten close to the zoning amendments, there's no way you're doing site plan review today.
Yeah, I know.
So November 21st.
I really, so everyone, I want you to listen to this. We're gonna wrap this up because we've already spent a lot of time on this. We have so many other things going on for just a normal meeting. So if anybody else has anything else to say, please say it now. You need, we gotta decide if we want to have a meeting on the 21st, which we're probably gonna have to.
Yep.
We
Sounds
agree
good.
on that?
Yes, sir.
8
And,
AM here.
yeah. And can we fit Paul in that meeting? Is everyone okay with that?
Yes.
Do you want to come first or after?
After,
After the site plan regs?
yes.
Second on the agenda.
Site plan regs are like so important right now, so we'll get you after that.
Sounds great.
I can send, I can hear you. I'll send you.
Okay, that'll be great, thanks.
Mark, do you have something?
No.
Okay,
We'll coordinate. It'll probably be closer to 9 o'clock.
yeah,
Okay,
To be safe.
You don't take.
thanks.
and you
It's
can come,
okay for him to hand carry in this additional information.
yes,
Okay.
you need to hand carry that in. Make sure if anything Craig doesn't come in, you have a signed copy of what he's got going on.
Of course.
Anything else? I think that's it.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry that I took so much of the meeting.
No, it's
Yeah.
good. I mean, we made, and Morgan made a really good point, so it's got us thinking about
Of
all of this,
course,
so.
of course. But thank you so much for your time. We
Okay.
appreciate it. Then I'll come back with all the information that you've required and we'll go from there.
Sounds good.
So I'll see you next week.
All right,
Yeah.
Thank
thanks,
you.
Paul.
Yeah, it's 9 o'clock already.
Yeah. So new business, the land use law conference seminar, that's just, I just put it in there because there's a seminar on this. If anyone wants to go, I think everyone got some information on that.
Oh,
So. Anything else that we need to talk about on that?
yeah, no, this is, yes.
I'm sorry. Who's talking right
Mike.
now?
I think it's Mike.
Mike, I think you
No,
just,
who's in the
Barry?
corner? Barry.
The green border was around Mike.
Mike, you're muted if you're talking, and I don't know who the other person is.
That's like Barry Fish.
Barry, we can only see the top of your head.
Yeah, there you go. Barry, were you talking?
No.
Okay, Mike Capel, you're still muted if you were talking. Okay, we're gonna move
Move
forward.
on.
The RFQ update, do we have anything on that, Steve?
So I can,
I'm gonna
can-
send you to,
Well, we have a working group. You could ask that question.
okay,
I might
I'm
refer to
sorry.
Steve.
Who's the leader of the working
I'll,
group?
I'll jump in and provide an update.
He's our leader.
Perfect.
For right now. I think, trying to remember the last update, and I'm not sure it got spoken to at the last meeting. I wasn't here. I was in Utah, but not a lot of response for us to noodle on. So in our last conversation this past week, I think it was last week, we got together, we talked about why that might be. and what we should do about it. And what we should do about it included going back out to some of the firms that we had targeted, because we had a few that we liked based on some of our research, to find out exactly why they weren't providing a response, or if they did provide a response, sort of a, yeah, no, we're not gonna supply a response to the RFQ. So Steve has gone back out to some of those folks, and I don't know if he has an update for us and can provide that today.
Yeah, not yet.
Not yet.
More we need to talk to.
And so the other options, I guess, with regard to that, depending on some of the feedback that we get, are to maybe pare back what we were looking for in the RFQ. So we had expanded the RFQ to include some items in there. We shared all of that with you. They're above and beyond what we historically would use someone for, like what Tara's done for us in the past, which is an absolute, A1 priority for us. But there's an awful lot of other things as we get into particularly town core development that we could use some help with, that we wanted to include in that. If we had to, at least in the shorter term, could scale back on some of our requirements there. So in lieu of hearing back from anyone, it doesn't sound like you've gotten anything from anyone lately. We have to sort of circle the wagons and make a decision about how we're gonna.
There was a conflict of interest too, that we were getting back as a response.
Yeah, I didn't know if you wanted to go into.
No, just that we had no takers for a couple of reasons. One was the expansiveness of the RFQ requirements, and two was, I think one firm in particular said we have a conflict of interest. And we're trying to explore that, see if we can't deal with that.
Okay.
So we have nothing at this point.
So we're gonna
Is
have
the-
another meeting.
Wait a minute.
Go
I have a
ahead.
question though. Is the North Country Council still on the table as a potential option?
I guess yes and no is a response. I hate to give it like that, but they're having some trouble with staffing. And I think their ability to satisfy our needs right now might be diminished. So
But keep in mind too, Tara said she would help.
absolutely.
beginning.
So that's
Mhm.
So
certainly
that's
on,
another
option.
that's always been on the
Okay.
table
Okay.
anyway.
Okay.
Certainly the continuity there would be wonderful as well. Longer term, probably not. Especially if we want to hang on to some of those other requirements that are beyond, sort of above and beyond what they would historically provide for us. What we're seeing, I'll share this as well, is that there are a number of job postings on the New Hampshire Municipal Association website related to planning for a lot of towns. So we're competing, one, and two, there's just so many of these people around. It's an absolute gem of a resource that we could use, and we're just not finding that people are either have the bandwidth or have the full scale competency that we're looking for. So,
Any other questions?
Bill, you were saying we get together again.
And we,
Next week.
no, I think we have to set a time.
We have to,
But we can do that after.
Yeah, okay,
we wanted to hear the feedback from Steve before we set another meeting.
that's what.
So, yes, obviously there will be another meeting, no question about that. And it'll be soon.
Okay, moving on, so. I put this, I want to try and keep the zoning information together, but. Chief Pear is on duty and he's got things to do, so I want to try and get him in here as soon as possible. That's why I kind of separated this. And this is one we tabled in regards to the parking stuff, so. Chief, did you wanna say anything else? or
I just had a
just-
couple questions, from the last meeting in reference to Tara that I just can't get around. The first one was, she mentioned no other town does this. So then,
That this being the parking in the zone.
no, this type of zoning ordinance, she made it sound like other towns don't do this, so I guess my question would be, why not? I know from an enforcement standpoint, this is very hard to enforce. Short of me having an Excel spreadsheet going around, checking off. You know, Bill had his camper day one,
Yeah.
You know, it's very hard to enforce. The second thing that she brought up last meeting that me and Mark had talked, and I don't know where or how this comes about, but she was saying that if it's not in the zoning ordinance, we can't enforce it in a parking ordinance. So I think that's another issue, and I don't even know if this is something we keep in the parking ordinance, knowing that how hard it's going to be to enforce it.
John, so I don't like hearing somebody else say what I said, because it isn't exactly exactly what I said.
Well, then clarify it, I
A
guess.
part of the meeting, I thought the next step was to look at the amendments that you and I worked on together. No?
So is that the parking draft, markup of 1017?
Yes, I understood that he was all set with it, and that's what we were gonna look at today.
Yeah, we may have to make a decision on this.
This amendment I've put on the screen, is this no longer okay with the chief?
No, it's okay, but you brought up some stuff before that if this is not in the zoning ordinance.
As I've amended it, I would not have amended it the way I did if I did not believe it was enabled under the zoning statute. I'm not in the habit of writing things I don't think are enforceable.
Can we move to discussing the draft amendment and deciding whether we want to move it forward?
Sure, yes.
We've got several of these things to roll through that we have to do today.
Yeah.
Right, this is the first of 4, and I think it did go out to everybody, and I do have one question in there. Because I wasn't sure if it was just the front setback you were talking about or all setbacks.
Yeah.
And the answer to that question, that's the yellow highlighted,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
And what is the answer to that question?
I think we have to decide what we think,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So, would it be all set? Okay, so if you said all setbacks, that would take into account where the front of the house or the driveway is as far, versus, because it could be, what is a front? What's the definition of the front of a property or the front of a house? Some people's front doors are off to the side. Is that,
well,
I don't
no,
know.
the front setback is always from the road to the house, no matter where their door is.
Okay, so from the public road to the house?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm fine with it's the front. Anybody else have a?
I think
Well,
you
so-
talked
so
about
it's-
both at the meeting, so I wasn't sure where you landed on what you wanted.
So if someone's driveway goes along, hooks around, so,
Mhm.
and they park this thing in the back, and it's in my field of vision from my house, I'm not gonna be too happy about that.
Because you're like, if you're the neighbor.
I'm in a butter.
Yeah.
But that's the enforcement predicament that public safety is in, trying to enforce, that's currently, right, you could complain.
So we have a lot of those kinds of things, like lighting and whatever, that are generally handled by virtue of a complaint, unless it's easily discernible by someone driving by in a cruiser.
And this would be only for single family, like we can't control condos. So then that's what it would come down to is from the single family residence.
Well, no, you can control condos, but the condos can be stricter than the town.
Well, that's what I was gonna say too, is the homeowners association can be stricter too. So
Right.
if you have a homeowners association that wants to have rules that are stricter than they can have, anything they want, so I think that's
Yeah.
another added element to look at.
I mean, I think to Rick's point, what we're trying to decide here is whether we want to move this forward to a public hearing where we get a sense of where the town would potentially stand on removing this restriction that currently exists in parking, in the zoning as part of our parking section. Whether people would be happy to see that go away. So my view is let's move it forward and get to a public hearing and see what people have to say about this.
Yeah.
Unless there's something in here that you think is a poison pill.
Mhm.
But the first question was, before you vote on whether to move it forward to a hearing, is this the front setback only or all the setbacks?
Okay, presumably, we've all read this. And do,
Here that you think is
is there,
poison pill.
But
Should we
the,
make
but
it
the
all?
first question was, before you vote.
There you go. There was somebody new that joined and.
Yeah.
And I have another question too that's related to it, but the end. So do we want to say all setbacks then? That would be the most restrictive. And then see what see what the public hearing says. Or, I mean, I'm.
Chief, is that where you're headed? But you want it,
No, they-
No, he
yeah,
just
you
wants
want
it to
it,
the
you
front.
want it struck from it,
I
right?
just think it's hard to have the neighbor, if they're trying to tuck it away, for the neighbor to say that's no good.
Mhm.
It's hard. It's hard when it came up in the first meeting where none of the neighbors care about it, but somebody driving through town doesn't like it sitting there. So that it's a hard thing to enforce. It's a hard altogether. So, but, and then it came up in the last selectmen's meeting about, that's the original intent was to not, but don't forget, we still have the junkyard in there. We still have the unregistered car in there, so not gonna make a junkyard because we have those provisions to prevent that. So it's more of what it comes down to is what's considered potentially an eyesore or what it's not.
yeah, yeah.
Is what it comes down to.
It's a perpetual conflict between the person who owns the property, who says, it's my property, I can put what I want here.
Absolutely.
It's my business what goes on my property, versus the abutter who says, I find it a imposition to be looking at this box sitting on your property. Yeah, so we're trying to balance that.
Absolutely.
Now, first question I have is, are you satisfied with the progress with regard to this amendment?
Yeah,
The way the amendment is written, do we want to go forward with it, in your opinion?
I think the hardest part, we can go forward with it, and I agree with Rich that we see what people say.
Okay,
Because I think there's two sides of town that are saying we don't want it and we do want it. So I think what the people say, and my standpoint is it's hard to enforce no matter what. So
okay.
that's the hardest part.
They go in front only.
I'll
So
rephrase. Is there anything about the way this
No.
amendment has been written that you, okay,
Yeah, possibly the front only. I don't know if you do a setback around the entire thing.
It would make it the same as dumpster, which
Yes.
we're gonna have another conversation at the select board level about dumpsters, right? But right now, our dumpster ordinance talks about view from a public way.
Yes,
Yes.
that's the
You know,
public way.
So the front would be the best, I think, from an
Yes.
enforcement.
I think so. I don't think that chief is in a position to be able to enforce anything else.
That's what he's saying.
Yes, okay, good. We go, then, let's see what the public has to say.
So do we need a motion to?
Well, I have a question that's still, at the very end of this, you could scroll down, there was a definition of recreational RV.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure for consistencies, and if you go back and look at when we talked about the floodplain ordinance, there is this very specific definition of recreational vehicle in there with different points. So for
Yep.
consistency reasons, is that even an issue?
Unfortunately, that's that's how it is. There's one definition in state law. And when there's a definition in state law, towns are supposed to follow it. And FEMA has a different definition that you need to have for the flood insurance purposes.
I agree 100%.
I don't see a way around that. I
Okay, so
thought
so
that
in
through
our-
too.
So should everything pass and we move forward, in our ordinances will be two definitions then of recreational vehicles?
Right.
Depending on
And
what.
that's- And
ordinance.
unfortunately, that's typical.
Okay,
Okay.
that
So,
was
in
my
the-
question.
so,
And we're gonna go back up to this question right here, in
Yeah, the front setback.
the front setback. We're done.
So I think we're
All
looking
three.
at like
Yeah, I
this.
mean,
Oh, Alan,
I know it seems like everybody wants front, but is there any disadvantage to writing it, on all sides? Knowing that it'll only be enforced on the front? Cause it's similar to me, like a noise ordinance. You don't show up unless somebody complains.
Unless, like Steve said, you go and it's obvious, but yes, usually
Okay,
not until
so
somebody
if you
complains.
do it a setback from four sides, that means the neighbor at least has the option to say, hey, that's the problem. Then you don't have to go searching around the back of the house.
It's not an option, that has to be enforced.
Yeah, can I respond to that?
Hang on a minute. Go ahead, Tara.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to weigh in on that issue. I hate to see you put in things that you know can't be enforced without kind of pitting a neighbor against another neighbor.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Isn't that what a noise ordinance does?
Except you can stand in the road and hear the same noise that's bothering the neighbor, but not see the camper.
Okay. No, I don't have a vote.
Wait a minute, what was that? So I sort of have the same issue, like somebody, in order to stay in compliance with this thing and keep their recreational vehicle out of the side of the road, is gonna tuck that thing back in my face. I don't want that.
Exactly.
You just made it my
Well,
problem
let's let the
because,
town decide.
well, so I think to Alan's point, like we say, it's.
There's no decision. You're making it enforceable. I mean, this will be part of the public discussion is all I'm saying. I'm not coming down on one side or the other at this point. But if the discussion is about the less restrictive, we move in the public discussion would find out that people want it more restrictive along the lines that you and Alan are bringing up.
I guess I want it to be more restricted, but I'm prepared to kind of lose that fight and hear what people have to say. I'm just.
But we're not voting on it. I mean,
No.
you would have potentially the vote if you're seated for moving this forward to a zoning amendment, whatever this is after the public hearing.
What the real change is, if you're talking with people, is right now it can't be within sight of any residence. So you'd be changing it to be it only couldn't be in the front setback, so kind of viewed from the road.
Yeah, our current one says residents,
It says within sight of any residence.
any residence, any business, anything. It's definitely stricter than this one, the current one.
And that's what we're essentially proposing. Otherwise, why are we moving?
Right, you're trying to make
Forward.
it less restrictive so it can be enforceable.
Wasn't some of the enforcement related to the type of vehicle too? Like, I thought we were gonna get. This just is maybe an example's sake. So we have a lot of the people getting the camper vans, and the camper van has been the biggest problem, I think.
And this language has been clarified to not include camper vans.
Well, except at that bottom. The definition of a recreational vehicle, I don't think excludes that.
I think at the last meeting,
I apologize, I missed a lot of that.
no, I know, I can't remember, Daryl has, and he's like, when I go to register it, it is registered as a
Private
Well, see,
passenger.
that's the problem is you have the option.
passenger van.
That is, they're looking at legislation and Tara may know more about this, but it's my understanding they're looking at changing it so it's not as optional and it comes down to an insurance thing. So Daryl could register his as a Dodge pickup truck worth $150,000 when his Class B motorhome is $350,000 vehicle. So for insurance purposes, it's what do you want to title it as and what do you want to register it as? So that would mean we are going around then checking plates to find out what cars are registered as. The public view or the seeing it from the public, I think is the best standpoint, simply, and the same thing for noise, is I have to have a lawful right to go onto somebody's property. If I've had to start going around, yeah, I could go into Alan's house, I guess, to see, in your house and see it. But once you start entering curtilages and stuff like that, that's where it gets hinky with warrants and stuff like that. With it from public, then if I'm driving down the road and I can see it and you complain, it's very easy to deal with. Same thing with noise. If we get called and like Tara, I think she just said that, is you can hear it from the public way. It's a lot. The public way is where we are always allowed to be. Once we start getting into that curtilage, it turns into, do you need a warrant, do you not need a warrant, stuff like that. So that's the hard thing.
Okay.
But this did take out those Class B that Daryl owns, that
Okay.
the Saulniers own, that is your regular day-to-day van that you can push a button and bed pops down and you can sleep in it. So that did kind of allow those to be parked in your driveway. Cause we just put A and C on here, not B.
Do we want to move forward with it?
Yeah, let's move forward with the front. I'm fine with the front. We'll see what people say.
Sure, there will be a lot to say.
Were there any other changes? Any other
don't think
pieces
so.
people wanted to talk about?
No,
Not do you want them to talk about it, but did anyone else have any comments?
I think this is good.
The motion?
Yeah.
Are we voting? Do you need a motion?
We need a motion, Tara, on this.
Yeah, you could do them one by one to have a public motion to have a public hearing.
Okay,
And Mr. Chairman, I move that this parking amendment as written, as I say, as amended, be moved forward to a public hearing.
I second that motion.
Yeah, Mike seconds.
Mike, second that?
Mhm.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right,
Aye.
Okay,
anybody not?
oh yeah,
Everyone, yeah?
Everyone is.
okay, so now we can go to the rest of the
Thank you,
regs.
Chief.
Excuse me?
Thank you, Chief.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chief.
We go to steep slopes, that's probably the next,
Yeah, let's go to the steep
the
slopes.
one you've seen the most.
Yep,
Karen, can you comment on, so my whole, and this is kind of consistent through a lot of the different ordinances in general, like when, like, on the email, I think it's F2, there's quote, "to greatest extent possible," or, you know, F4 patterns, like when things are not, so it might kind of an ambiguous language, like, is there a way to tighten things up, or is it just pretty standard? Because sometimes you'll have very specific things, like, you know, something is a 15% slope and 1,000 feet, and then, you know, then you get comments of as much as possible. Well, what does that?
You know,
'cause
I actually, I think this language is from the model that I helped write, but I actually would rather it say practicable. Cause that's kind of legally a different term, because you could argue that the greatest extent possible, I mean, precludes you from building. I think that's a good, you've reminded me of something, but it may not be the point you were trying to make. Because I mean, how would you put a number on, if you're trying to build a house and clear the site, how would you put a number on how much vegetative cover to preserve? But I think there is something to be said for the word practicable, because that's meaning, you know, you're not spending $1 million or standing on your head. It's kind of normal practice, within the realm of normal practice.
I don't have the vaguest idea what that means though.
Well, in land use terms, it does have a meaning, and it's kind of what I just said, that there's a degree of things you can do that make kind of common sense, and we'd call that practicable. But the extent possible, money can make a difference, right? Large sums of money could sometimes make something possible, and that's not really what we mean.
So this is F. This is
So in F2, I'd actually rather see,
F4 to, you know, just those, and even, can you scroll down for a sec to F4? Where does it say? Let's say a pattern streams.
It's the last sentence.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. Oh, that was just a typo, sorry. Never mind.
So F2 is
put a space between there.
So change greatest extent possible in F2 to preserve.
Practical.
the first one, let me look at the other one.
Yeah.
Tara, I have a question. I don't understand why a bunch of money cannot make something practicable. I just don't understand why one with a lot of money makes it work and a lot of money doesn't make it work.
I think the second one could stay possible. I was just trying to think that through as I was doing it. Practicable and possible are two different things. Practicable is kind of within the within the best management practices that we promote. But if you wanted to say the extent possible, then there could be some way to contrive the site or shape a bizarre shaped house or something that made something possible that's not really practicable.
If you say so. I don't understand the difference, but
Yeah, I use it a lot when I write model ordinances like I have for the state. This one I was on the editorial team for, but I didn't write.
I think practical.
I would take the more carefully defined practicable.
Can we
definitely.
also, I'm gonna share the oversight with John of you not getting the Conservation Commission comments until right now. I did want to address they had talked about putting some language back into the purpose statement of this. Right.
Email from the conservation.
Yeah.
It's the first time I've seen it.
What?
Yeah.
Conservation.
I know,
Committee?
and that's again, I'm gonna own that with John. We dropped the ball on that.
I think this is what you wanted me to read out. But he's coming right back.
Because I'm recommend, go ahead and read it. I'm recommending part of it, but not all.
Okay. So just the steep slope on the back. The steep slope overlay district, the Conservation Commission strongly supports this measure. Suggested change: 1, restore the language that appeared in the first draft of this document in section A. Purpose, quote, and to preserve the natural topography, drainage patterns, vegetative cover, scenic views, wildlife habitats, and to protect unique natural areas.
So I think adding back in natural topography, drainage patterns, and vegetated cover makes sense. Scenic views, wildlife habitats, and protect unique natural areas referred to a different piece of this model ordinance that we're not using, that related to protecting scenic views rather than erosion control.
Yes, I interpreted it as being largely subjective. We're once again running into the problem of enforcement.
But if can you hold that thought? How do people feel about adding back in here to protect natural topography? I'm sorry, I typed so slowly.
Yes.
Never learned typing. Drainage patterns, yeah. Vegetative.
Okay, I'm in agreement with that.
Cover
Right.
Not scenic views.
and reduce like that. How does that look?
What about,
Yeah,
what's the reason about wildlife habitats? So like, I know in the past, one of the reasons the mountain couldn't expand was because there was potentially bear dens over there, so like.
It's not really a valid zoning purpose, is why I
Okay.
don't like to see it.
That's sufficient.
This is really to do with drainage more than anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all about stormwater and erosion.
Yeah, what are we
So
talking
you want to
about?
keep it focused.
Fair,
Okay.
that's fair.
Okay,
So that's.
any objections? Here, Alan?
Can I ask you a question back on, I think it's number 4, the first word is development.
Where are we?
Or what's
Or
the
estimate.
capital letter?
I don't know.
Maybe
It was right before you were
There
here.
you go.
Here?
All development, yeah.
Oh, okay,
Does
thanks.
that mean new development?
It's everything.
Well, it never, zoning ordinances never look back.
Okay, what I'm trying to find out or see if this applies. What if your neighbor wants to take down all the trees on his steep hill and the drainage is affected? This wouldn't matter to that.
If,
I think it would.
if it's triggered,
By the
If
1,000
it's
square.
triggered by this, if it's a slope greater than 15%,
Okay,
and they're disturbing the ground more than 1,000 square feet,
okay, sorry, I missed that.
then these apply. This is what it would apply to.
Okay,
But you can cut trees without disturbing the ground.
Yeah.
If they have a bulldozer in there pulling the stumps, that's disturbing the ground.
mhm.
You want to move this forward?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I move that we accept the steep slope overlay district measure as amended to move forward to a public hearing.
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any,
Done.
We're
We're done.
Move on. We've got two.
okay, the next one is shoreline.
Did we actually have a draft?
Yeah, I
I think-
sent it out in the first batch.
That way back when, right?
Yeah, there was
That-
something
that-
called
okay.
Shorelines in Waterville Valley.
That's, but it was sent out revised, with the steep and parking.
Got it.
Those three came out together.
Thank you. Right, that, I just wanted to make sure that was the last one.
So one of the questions was about to include Corcoran's Pond or not? Is that?
Yes, I
Okay,
think that was still open.
which I would want to include Corcoran's Pond. I mean, I feel like you can always apply for a permit, like they can always apply for, somebody could, ask for an exception, et cetera. But
Right.
I would rather it be a little more restricted,
Mhm.
It is an artificial pond. And it is used to help with snowmaking. If you look at it the last couple of weeks, someone tell me where the shoreline is.
Right.
Well, that's
Isn't it
somebody's
supposed to be
job.
high water?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
What?
engineer's job, it's
In,
mentioned in
in the
the,
middle of a C1. I mean, it's an artificial pond
That's the other issue about this.
for, yeah, that's what we talked about before, in the middle of our commercial district.
Mhm.
Which development would be controlled by a site plan review process. In
Did it-
which there are a number of easements that go through that property, and we want to overlay something else to further complicate it for us, for what end?
to
Preserve.
Preserve what?
the shoreline, around it, the environment around it and the beauty of it too.
I think you do that through the site plan review process. It's not looking pretty beautiful now, It's looking like a big
It's always.
The mud
I think
pond.
mud
You know,
pit. I
Right.
don't know, I'm struggling with, it's
Deers.
artificial and it's it was created for a commercial purpose and it's the middle of commercial. That's the only thing, that's the only problem I have with this particular.
Well, if we didn't care
Amendment.
about the pond so much, we probably wouldn't be dredging it, right?
Well, we're dredging it for commercial purposes.
Right, where it draws people to the valley as well.
Yeah, but if you're gonna draw people to the valley because there's a pond there, it is now the jewel element in the center of town. Why wouldn't you want to protect it?
You do through the site plan review process.
Okay,
And that's
And I'm-
that's gonna be intensively developed.
right, but it's still gonna be the center of town. It's still gonna be the point through which most people view this town. All the photographs of the town that promote it
Mhm.
utilize
Yeah.
the pond.
Right.
You
So
already
why
have-
wouldn't you want the,
You already have a view easement to do that. There's a view easement that is part of the town's property.
Mhm.
but
What do you mean by view easement?
The iconic from the bridge across to Mount Tecumseh,
Yep,
there is a written view easement that can be maintained.
What
in
are,
perpetuity.
mhm.
so what is that, not maintained as it is when that was written, but what is?
Yes, maintained as it was when it was written. There can't be any buildings put in there, there can't be any tree that grows up in that view area can be cut down. and that view maintained.
So if they change town square, that doesn't apply.
No,
Okay.
it's the land, the
Right
easement is
there.
across the land, right there adjacent to Valley Road.
Okay,
Okay,
Yeah,
so,
town property.
gotcha.
No, it's not town property, it's resort.
It's resort property as well.
And the resort property is encumbered by that easement.
Okay.
So you have ways to maintain the view.
so,
that-
but I mean, there already are protective measures in place.
Well, but
Slightly.
again, this puts another overlay over that could potentially complicate the maintenance of that easement. Because if this prevents removal of vegetation or whatever, how do you balance?
Can you cut down a tree that's blocking the view?
Yeah,
I mean, what are we trying to protect here, I
what,
think?
yeah, what are we,
What is this? Tara, you were instrumental in drawing this up. In other places, what is the exact purpose? I mean, in nice, easy language. Shoreline protection, what are we actually trying to protect? It's not the view, is it? It's not,
No, it's sedimentation. It's to keep whatever vegetation on the edge to trap nutrients and other pollutants and sediment from entering the water. And it
Isn't it-
provides some shade. The vegetation also provides some shade for you know, the aquatic organisms, fish.
Yeah, I interpret it as to prevent environmental degradation.
Mhm.
It's all these things that are lettered right
Summed
above.
up, yep.
yeah, no, I'm trying to get the sum.
Because it does go into Snow's Brook, you know, and then it goes down into the Mad River as well, so.
And what is the traditional approach to ponds like this, Tara, in the state?
Oh, it's really varied.
Okay,
Yeah, I remember that it came, you sent us a thing that had all the
Right.
different variations of
Yeah, it's all over the place.
buffers.
Anywhere from
So,
like
would
10
you like
to
me to read?
100 feet or something.
Yeah,
right?
and I think I wrote the 10 for Carol because they decided something was better than nothing.
Okay.
Can I have Morgan read what the Conservation Commission recommends? Yes.
But did you, I didn't hear consensus yet, I didn't think, on the pond.
Well,
No, this relates to it though.
Before you, well, no, it doesn't.
doesn't
Helps
mention the
protect
pond.
They
shoreline
didn't weigh in on that.
town.
Well, we're
Well,
discussing,
with the buffers, it does.
do you want to include the pond? I mean,
Let's,
let's let folks decide whether they want to include the pond. I think it's going to be very complicated. It's going to complicate things tremendously in an area that's slated for commercial development, and which we already have site plan review regulations to govern the development.
I had a question, Rich. Can you explain how we can control this through the site plan review? You mentioned that.
Yeah,
several
well, I know,
times.
I mean, it gives the planning board the power to decide whatever, you know, we're gonna be reviewing the site plan review regulations, but it's like for any commercial development. Whatever the specifications are, we go down through our site plan review regulations.
And what does it
That's
have to
normally how
say?
you control commercial development, right?
And what does it have to say about protecting the shoreline?
I don't think it discusses protecting the
Yeah.
shoreline directly.
So then there's no overlap then, right?
Yep.
right.
Well, again, it gets to the purpose of what you're trying to do. I don't see how you protect the shoreline of an artificial working pond that varies in.
I don't, you've said that a few times now. I don't think the DES would consider that an artificial pond. If it was, then we could just go in there and dig it up and dredge it ourselves, right? So,
No, we created it, is all I mean by artificial.
Yeah,
yeah, I
no, my
mean,
dad.
it technically is
dig it.
Snow's Brook. You know, with
Yeah.
a dam in front of it.
Yeah, no, we created a
Store the
pond and
water.
therefore it's gonna be regulated by the state, unfortunately.
Right, so I
In-
don't, yeah. Go ahead, Tara.
In the the question about what's normal, it's a lot more typical to include ponds that are within a stream the way this is, as opposed to if it was a standalone pond on somebody's property, because it is protecting the stream.
Not perfectly fine for letting it go forward and let the discussion happen at the public hearing. I just raised some
yeah.
concerns about including Corcoran Pond, which is already gonna be subject to a number of other.
I guess I'm not clear on what the
Control.
downside is.
I think it'll complicate things. I think it was mentioned in terms of
Complicate what thing?
vegetation clearing and so forth.
You can still get permits to do, you know, special except, you know, if there's something that's, you know.
We're adding bureaucratic steps, yes.
So it's gonna create more work on the back end through the town. Is that,
It's not the work, it's what are you going, how are you going to be approaching it? What is the right way to do it? Is it the development plan, like that plan? Because that plan goes right up to the 10-foot walking path around the pond, which is another easement that is encumbering that lane. So, you know, if you're setting back 50 feet, does that mean that the 10-foot path is now 60 feet away from the pond? Or is it within the first 10 feet of the 50 feet?
okay,
It just adds a complication to what's already there.
We could clarify that, couldn't we? That's a good point.
I
Can't
think,
we include if we go with the 50 feet, that's inclusive of the 10-foot easement? So that's not 60.
But we already say that, I mean, walking paths are okay in there. I don't. It would go, we would define, if you include Corcoran's Pond, there's a definition in the state shoreline ordinance. I would include, that's how you measure the edge, and then it's 50 feet from that.
So it doesn't depend on the actual,
there will be different interpretations
Patients
of
of-
that going forward.
Well, it's the engineer is the person that, there's
Okay.
the one person.
Well, there shouldn't be any more than in enforcing the Shoreline Protection Act. If we use the state's definition.
Ordinary high water mark, for streams, it says up here. I'm assuming it's the same for ponds.
I have to check on that. I don't,
Rose Brook and Corcoran Pond are not included in the shoreline protection.
right, but we have to use their definitions anyway, because they exist in state law.
okay,
Currently. Now they would be.
right.
I say move forward.
Can we read in
Moving
the
forward.
recommendations?
Yeah, let's have that conversation.
We haven't done that yet.
Tara, I'm gonna read the conservation recommendations.
Yeah, they just didn't weigh in on this issue, and I wanted to be sure I knew what to do on it before you moved
Yeah.
on.
Go ahead.
Are you sure?
Wait, okay, one moment. You're leaving?
Yeah, I need to leave. I
We
apologize.
said 9:45.
Yeah, well, that's wrong.
We drove them away early.
We
Could you,
sent somebody good.
could you please,
I'm
well,
gonna-
Margaret is the
I'm gonna
designated.
seat Margaret
by
in
the select
place of
board.
Rich. Would you make note of that? Thank you.
Okay, so the Conservation Commission shoreline protection. The CC strongly supports this measure. Pros: 1, local enforcement capability rather than just deferring everything to the state. 2, includes all perennial streams, not just fourth order. 3, helps protect shorelines not owned by the town. 4, 50-foot buffer. Cons: none. Suggested changes: 1, eliminate quote and provide views end quote from section 4B. 2, change section 4F to read quote wastewater treatment facilities end quote. 3, if this proposal is approved by the planning board and moves forward to a public hearing, and if there is demonstrable pushback from residents on this measure, consider reducing the buffer to 25 feet. Getting something on the books for local control is better than nothing.
John, Margaret can't sit for Rich.
Why?
It has to be a selectman's alternate.
Well, the select board voted to have Margaret serve as the alternate.
Oh, I see. I didn't realize it wasn't a select board member. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So when the Conservation Commission suggested a 50-foot buffer, that was in total. So I'm wondering, Mark, if there's already a 10-foot,
If that's non-specific, it's just a 10-foot wide path,
okay,
walking path.
all right,
It's
well,
not specific, it's not a setback.
okay. So I guess what I'm getting at is if the. How
I
would that work then? If
John,
there
were you getting at, what if it was 10 feet around Corcoran's Pond?
No,
No?
in addition to what the. I mean, a total number for what the Conservation Commission suggested.
I'm not following you.
Well, there's already 10, Mark mentioned that if there's 10 feet there and we recommend 50, does that mean 60 feet?
No, it's measured
No.
from the edge of the pond
This
as
is-
defined by the state.
Right, so
The
we're
10
looking, the Conservation Commission is looking for a total of 50 feet buffer, 50-foot buffer,
Yes.
a total of.
Where there is no development at all. Or that it's controlled.
I would say control, because they mentioned multiple times local control.
Well, this would be what you're saying is permitted under number 5.
Right.
So that's pretty much no development.
No development for 50 feet.
Of course, they
That's
can
what they're
always go to
saying.
the Z and ask for, if there's something like. They wanna put a dock in or what, they can go and get the Z, again.
Well, a dock is permitted. I mean, if you read the list under 5, a dock is permitted.
Or,
Pipes.
so, or let's say maybe a restaurant, I don't know, like something that would encroach upon the 50 feet, let's say a restaurant within that.
Yeah,
That could
they
then
need a
go,
variance.
I think these regulations are going to be troublesome around Corcoran Pond. I don't think they're going to be troublesome elsewhere. But there's going to be so much activity around the pond. And then somebody says, oh, I can measure this 50 feet, so you can't do whatever it is that's applicable within the 50-foot zone because of this ordinance.
But what if you made it 10 feet around the pond?
Mark,
Yeah,
could you estimate, I'm trying to do it in my brain and whatever. What would you say the distance is from the edge of the pond to the edge of the skating rink? Just so we get a feeling what 50 feet means. 50 feet is almost 20 yards.
right, sure, yeah, 60 feet is 30 yards.
Yep.
60 feet.
Did I do that right?
Okay,
No,
what's the
yard
point?
is 30 feet. So it's 20 yards.
Right.
20 yards.
You
So if you
think,
paste it, yeah, you get 20 long steps would take you to the arena.
right, so I think that, that's almost 50 feet. Just so that we know about how far we're talking about. That's a pretty long distance.
It is. That's
That's my
point.
issue. That's my issue when we talk about any kind of development around Corcoran's Pond. I think 50 feet is a pretty long distance.
I do too.
Yeah, but I think that's the point.
No, I understand the point. I think that considering potential development or whatever we want to call it around Corcoran's Pond, 50 feet, I think is a bit too far.
Okay, we could simply make this amendment applicable everywhere. That is, make Corcoran Pond an exception.
Or we could lower anything is better than nothing, so we could lower it to 25 feet or 30 or whatever, you know.
I like 30 feet because that's 10 yards. I think that, I just think 50 feet, and I'm kind of looking out what 50 feet would mean. I think that's a pretty long distance for development around Corcoran's Pond. I think
It is.
we'd really be restraining potential development in that area, which is more than we intend. More than I would like to see anyway.
So I just think about standing on the bridge, looking at Town Square and onto Tecumseh, and do you want buildings right on the edge of Corcoran Pond? Like that's the view that we want to protect. So if you've got people going right up to 10 feet, then
I didn't say 10 feet, I said 30 feet.
right, but I'm just saying, if you go to 10 feet, or I guess 10 yards is what you had said.
Okay, so if, let's say we have a proposal that it's 50 feet with the exception of Corcoran Pond, which is 25 feet.
I could live with that.
Representing the Conservation Commission, I want 30. Margaret,
I have two questions. Mark, did you not say that there is a view easement right now? And is it specified, or is it, you just need to be able to see?
It's standing on the bridge, it
Yeah.
goes out at a 45-degree angle from there.
wow,
Okay,
That area just in front, this was only on the resort land right in front. That area had to be maintained clear so that you have the ability for its mouth.
so therefore, within that area, they have the right to cut trees.
The town has the right to maintain that view easement.
Okay. The second thing I wanted to know,
It does not, I'm sorry,
yeah,
the sides of the pond are not included in it. It's just that area right adjacent to Valley Road. Right, so.
Gotcha. Like this picture that I drew,
Exactly.
hard to see, but it's just right here.
Yeah, it's just
That's
right
It's
there.
not extending out this
Does
way.
not extend out
So it's.
on the side.
okay. And also, did I hear you say that Snowsbrook and the pond are not included in the definition of perennial streams by New Hampshire?
No, the New Hampshire, it's the third order water body. The Mad River is the only water body in town right now that's subject to shoreline protection.
So are they is Corcoran Pond and Snowsbrook part of the perennial streams as identified by the?
Snowsbrook is, the pond is not, the way this is written right now.
Thank you.
John,
I'm here.
did you say that you representing the Conservation Commission would not object to 30 feet?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. I just needed to make sure I heard you properly.
Yes, you did.
So I would like to go forward. I don't have a problem with 30 feet. Bill, do you have a problem with 30 feet?
Yes,
You like your 25?
I do.
Okay.
Can we just take a little show of hands of who likes 30 feet? I like 30.
30.
1, 2,
I could live with either.
You maintain that.
25 feet. 1. 1?
Cheese stands a little.
That's fine with me. Yeah, okay. Majority rules.
I'm still gonna recommend 30 feet. Let's do 30 feet.
I could live with 30
We can
feet.
discuss it at the public hearing.
It
I mean,
doesn't end here,
people-
right?
Yeah, I mean, you know.
So
people
what
want-
was that vote on, 25?
30.
30.
In favor of 30.
So,
A full vote, or was that just
No,
a?
that was.
Okay.
That's a straw vote.
Just, yeah,
so it's gonna be 30 for public hearing, right?
yeah,
Yes.
Yes.
yeah.
So I'll rewrite this to add that in and add how you measure that.
Thank you.
And can we then go back and talk about the Conservation Commission recommendations?
Yes,
So the first one, they recommended eliminating trimming for views.
Eliminate and provide views. They want to eliminate quote and provide views from section 4B.
Yeah, that's here.
But that's the easement.
yeah, that's kind of duplicating,
Eliminate and provide views from section 4.
is that right?
It 4B doesn't make sense. They must mean 5B.
Yeah.
And,
is.
and I
That's
think
correct. That
that's-
was an error.
Yep. So this is important. When we write models, we get input from municipal attorneys and we make sure and include things that people who've invested in their property can maintain the value of that property. And maintaining a view is one of those things. So it's important. It was in the first, I wrote the first shoreline model in the state years ago, and it was in there, and it's been all of them ever since. So I'm advocating to keep that.
Okay.
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 Fine with that, or-
We'll agree, yeah, we agree.
Number 2, I think, is a good catch. This is old outdated language, should say wastewater treatment.
Yep.
And then number 3, they were just saying that if you get a lot of pushback at the public hearing, maybe consider 25 instead of 50. And I think that's a good comment. Don't necessarily throw it all out.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's it.
Shoreline, check.
Any other comments on shoreline?
No.
May I
No.
make a comment?
is that James?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hi, James. Yes, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. I've been watching, and I believe at a previous meeting I had raised this issue, but I just wanted to point out that there's not just a view easement that exists as part of the agreement that led to the pond becoming the town's property. There's other easements. There's a dock easement. There's a wetlands easement on the south side of the pond to not disturb wetlands within a certain distance. There's also an encroachment easement in the favor of the landowner that allows a structure to be built along the north shore of the pond that actually extends to the pond. If this is an amendment you're going to pursue that tramples on that easement, then we're going to have to challenge that. And I mean, if in fact you can trample on that easement by passing this and eliminating that encroachment easement that the landowner was granted and that we now possess as the owner of the land, then I have to question why we need to continue to allow the view shed easement across our property. I mean, these easements exist as recorded agreements. And so I think you need to take a look at that agreement. And I raised this issue before. I don't know if anyone looked at it. There is a long, detailed, recorded agreement between the town and the landowner regarding all of this stuff around the pond. It covers the location of the walking trail. It covers what happens in that wetland buffer that was created on the south side of the pond. It covers docks. It covers this encroachment. It covers the view easement. It covers the proposed use of the lot that has been talked about for bathrooms and things like that. So I would encourage you to review that and see what adopting this amendment would do to those rights. Because if our rights are taken away by adopting this, we're going to have to challenge that.
Doesn't I have a legal question. My understanding is that if you have a recorded easement, and I apologize, I have not read it, and I think we have to make sure that it is distributed to all of us. I thought the easement that would be in place would be grandfathered.
No, an easement is the same as any other property right. Zoning changes take away property rights all the time. You could buy a piece of commercial land and you have certain rights to develop commercial, and it's changed to residential and you no longer have the right to build commercial. An easement is no different. It's property rights subject to the zoning ordinance. It's a different issue though. Do you want to be in court wrangling over that?
Okay,
I mean,
but
right?
can I ask you another question, Tara?
The chairman can let you ask all the questions you want, but I
I
just want to
understand.
make.
Let me ask a question.
All allowed.
Within this zoning amendment, can we state that, if we should so desire, can we state that all of this is subject to former easements?
No.
We cannot do that.
Because easements aren't any different than ownership. It's ownership of a property right.
Okay, so what you're saying is that if we went ahead with this, it would absolutely supersede that easement, and we cannot grandfather that easement.
Right.
I just wanted to clarify. Legally, I wanted to understand. I think that's very important.
Yeah.
But
So-
the easements could stand, like, again, you could go to the ZBA and, that would be part of a discussion and a really good point
You
to
don't,
ask exception.
we don't want to do something that we know is automatically gonna wind up with the town in court. That doesn't make sense.
That's the implication that it's like a threat.
Yeah.
I don't
No,
like
no, 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 no. Okay, I didn't threaten to go to court. Look, we would challenge that in terms of the discussions of this. But I just want to point out, look, this is like, yes, if you take away these through a rezoning, you're taking away property rights. But frankly, I don't think anyone sitting in that room has actually read the existing agreements about what rules, regulations, and agreements exist around the pond. And
But
you're
James,
talking
that's
about
why I'm
imposing
asking.
a shoreland ordinance without even having read what exists.
That's
And
why
Mark-
I am asking for, and I don't know whether, I'm sure you have it, James, and the town probably has it, that those easements should be distributed to all of us, and all of us should read it and understand it before we pass or do not pass this.
And yes,
and you've had this discussion for a couple months, and Mark brought up the easements, and my understanding was that you were going to have read it before today's meeting. So I'm sharing that concern.
Yeah, so we never got them, but I do think we can still go forward with and put it, since we're gonna be having a town hearing and hear what what the public says, and we can, make changes. Correct? I mean.
Well.
You can make
well,
changes and have a second public hearing.
Yeah.
But we're under it.
Right, so that's what we're trying to have another meeting on the 21st. So if we can read that information that Mark will send out to us, that James is talking about, and discuss this again on the 21st of November.
I agree.
Is that correct, Tara?
I thought the 21st was for the site plan regs, but obviously
is.
you can add whatever you want to it.
Right.
Well, I think we're gonna have to,
I
because
mean, there'll still be, you haven't talked about a hearing date, but if it was the regular meeting time, that would still be plenty of time to notice it.
oh, okay, I see. Then what if we table this until December's meeting?
Well, I was saying, I thought the 21st was fine.
John, I think that,
Excuse me, Mike, hold on a minute.
go ahead.
I think it's really up to the board to decide if we want to discuss this on the 21st of November or go into December's meeting.
Or, no, John, those aren't the choices. You have to decide today what you're having a public hearing on in December. so that you have time for a second hearing in January.
I agree.
But you could also decide on the 21st. That's still time to decide what you want it to look like at the December hearing.
Okay.
But you
Right.
can't wait and decide in December.
Right. I
Okay,
agree.
now I understand it. All right. So I'm fine with that if everyone else is fine with that.
Do we need a motion for that?
Not
Yeah,
really.
we need a motion to present this at a public hearing.
Yeah, I don't think
Well,
you need,
with
you
the
don't need a
proviso-
motion to just keep talking about it at the next meeting.
Okay. But can we make sure that that is that easement is distributed to us so that we can read it?
Yeah, because we were supposed to have had it.
Okay.
Yeah, Mark.
It's
And Mark
already,
left the room, so I assume he's going to do that.
it's already decided.
Like the
Yep,
property.
that's fine.
Not just we can pull, we have to go.
Right,
get
it's not
them.
easy
So
to
Mark
find.
will get the easements with Sharon and.
The point is, I don't think that we have a problem with this particular amendment, except for the problem around Corcoran Pond.
Yep.
That is, we could present this to the public with the exception of Corcoran Pond.
I'm
And to
not,
be able to say to the town that all these easements exist. And that needs to be resolved.
Yeah, you can
Either
decide
come
that
to
on
a
the
compromise
21st.
or-
Okay, we
Well-
can decide that on the 21st, Tara said.
but I feel like it should, if we're going to the town, it should go with Corcoran's Pond and let the town come back to us and, and with the knowledge of the easement so that we can have a discussion, that's fine. But I don't think it should be put forward without Corcoran's Pond on there. I mean, because we can always pull it off. But if we don't have it on to begin with, then it's not on there. Am I making sense?
You are.
Okay. So in a roundabout way, like it can always come off,
Right.
but it can't be put back on. So,
Fair.
I think it's a can of worms.
But
It's more difficulty than we want to stir.
But what's the right thing to do? Regardless of difficulty, that's where my head lies.
Okay, I think the right thing to do is to honor the existing agreements.
I agree.
May do that by the 21st though, right? Like if we get to review these things, we meet that's next week,
Okay,
Yeah,
and we decide, yeah, we're gonna take it
so
off.
we're tabled it until the 21st.
that's what I'm
No, a
suggesting.
continuation.
21st, bring a lunch.
Unfortunately.
Order from the county.
Just remember, I have a school board meeting at 4.
I think we should be done.
You
by
might
then.
make it, Mike.
That's what we're gonna do. We're gonna table it until.
We're gonna table it
Pending more
And send out for pizza.
because we don't need this
That doesn't
additional.
help me.
And what's the point of creating all this controversy?
well, you're protecting the
Preserving,
shoreline,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, but I think that
And I
there
think
are,
that a compromise can be found. I do,
All right.
I do believe
let's
that.
work on compromise.
Oh, I should have, before I closed that, I should have asked if there were any other comments on the shoreline.
Yeah.
Were there?
And again, we spend all this money on the sedimentation of the pond.
Just to have people build on it.
Yeah, and add more it's just costing us more money, but let's just.
Were there any other comments on the shoreline draft?
No.
No,
Thank you, James.
What's next on the agenda?
Floodplain.
Floodplain.
So this combines the no net loss model that I wrote for the state with the updated FEMA requirements. I've sent it to the state floodplain officer for confirmation that it meets the flood insurance requirements, and I haven't heard back. I wouldn't hold off on going to public hearing. I think any comments that come from her aren't going to be substantive comments that would require another public hearing. To be minor changes.
There was a question about what was sewered and what, is all the floodplain area sewered? Or no?
I guess it's no.
When the yellow part I had, you mean?
Also,
Okay.
The parts about septic systems, I didn't know if that was needed or,
it is not,
Okay,
it's
so,
all sewer.
It's all
all right,
sewer.
so we can take that off. I had a question on, wait till you're done. Person I can't remember.
I may have to leave that in for FEMA anyway. I'll ask.
I'm out. I wanna correct that. No, it's all sewer now. We have sewer on West Branch Road.
No.
Every. It's not all being used. There are active septic systems, but none of them can be repaired. Right? So if any of them fail, that property has to connect by our regulation
Ah,
to the sewer.
okay,
Because they all have sewer now within 250 feet
Up,
of their property.
it's Greeley Hill in my mind. Weren't they
Really, yeah.
It's not
Snows
in the
Mountain
It's
Road?
not in the flood.
Not in the floodplain? Okay, thank you.
So
I'm-
north end, everything that's in the floodplain, all the condos, everything is on sewer. Except the houses that are using currently, but they have to connect to sewer if they fail.
Okay. Lovely.
It may just be easier to leave that language because it's required as part of the flood insurance, than try to explain that to FEMA, but
No,
I'll
that's
I'll
fine.
check.
You can leave it in, but it doesn't apply.
Yeah. I'll ask.
okay, good.
I think that's in two places. But I feel like I highlighted two things. Yeah. Okay.
The one question. Does the state regulation take precedent over town's ability to limit development on floodplain? That
What do
is,
you
can
mean
the
the
town
state
say, is the town able to say no development is allowed on the town and the floodplain within the town's perimeter?
Oh, yeah. The state has no floodplain regulations.
This is a federal regulation. This is
A federal regulation.
The
Yes.
federal,
Not state,
so
but
the
federal.
federal regulation is only an insurance related requirement. It's not about land use.
Okay,
And the model floodplain ordinance I wrote for DES that was published by the state was vetted by several attorneys, so there's nothing in here that has not been looked at by several attorneys, land use attorneys.
Margaret, sorry, go ahead.
Basic question, what is NHOPD?
New Hampshire.
Where?
yeah.
New Hampshire Office of Planning and Development, thank you.
Oh, they change their name every 6 months. I've started calling it the state planning office.
Any other thoughts, questions? Oh, Tara, can we read I'm gonna read the suggestion from the Conservation Commission.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Floodplain ordinance. The Conservation Commission strongly supports this measure. Suggested changes. 1, to the section regarding conditional use permits. Add language requiring Conservation Commission review, similar to the steep slope ordinance. Quote, prior to making a decision on an application for a conditional use permit, the planning board shall provide the Conservation Commission with 21 days to review and make a recommendation, end quote. Number 2, eliminate section 4A, additions to structures. Number 3, eliminate section 4C, accessory structures. With regard to items 2 and 3 above, the Conservation Commission wonders if it is customary to allow new building in floodplains or if that is something that municipalities can prohibit. We answered that one.
Right, the answer is yes and yes. It's customary, but towns can't prohibit.
So we want to know whether or not that we should add this conditional use permit. Allowing the Conservation Commission 21 days to review and whether or not we're gonna eliminate sections 4A and 4C.
Yeah, I'll comment on those, but you guys need to talk about Conservation Commission review first.
I think that's good. More information is better, you know.
No objection.
And then 4A and 4C.
I have no objection to 21 days. Go.
So is that,
4A and 4C are.
can we put that in there?
I think it's 5, but
Where are we? 4A additions to structure. I'm a little lost here.
Yeah. There's the conditional use. It's this, there it is, 1 and 2.
This is G.
One and
1 and 2.
They would like to eliminate those additions to structures and accessory structures.
Yeah, that's again is something that we would put in to make sure that we're not taking away somebody's investment in their property that they've already made. This is all about saying, you know, do your best with what you already have and do your best to not build in the floodplain, right? And if you have to do it, here are the requirements for making sure that you're not taking away any flood storage. We used to call them no build ordinances, but they're really no net loss ordinances. You're trying to make sure there's no net loss of the flood storage capacity.
so where are we on?
So I don't want to see you eliminate those. You would be in court.
Can you scroll up a little to see the main part of that?
Up or down?
There you go, right there. Okay.
So where are we? I would say no to these 2 provisions about
Elimination.
yes. And okay to 21 days.
And where's the 21 days in that?
Right there.
Do we have, is it already in or do we have less?
I don't.
You don't have Conservation Commission review in yet.
It's 0.1. We're saying we support 0.1 of the suggested changes, but we do not support points 2 and 3.
Correct.
Okay, got it.
Any other comments on floodplain?
No,
There aren't any you could vote to go to public hearing on that with the addition of the Conservation Commission review.
Do we need a motion?
Yes.
I propose that the floodplain amendment be presented to town meeting with the amendment. of
No,
the-
for public hearing, not for town meeting.
Public, I'm sorry, yeah, okay, yeah. Somebody else can do this. That we present this floodplain ordinance amendment for public review with the amendment including a 21-day review from the Conservation Commission.
second that, anybody?
Second.
Morgan seconds that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, good.
Check in, check.
That's good. They'll like that.
So do we pick a day now for our public hearing, since we
Yeah.
have 3?
And- Think that would be good, and then we can be getting ready for it and just plug in the shoreland after you finish discussing it on the 21st.
Yes.
Getting into holiday season.
So the first week in December, is that what we're
I
thinking?
think so.
We need 10 clear days. The staff needs to be able to get it up on the website with 10 clear days after the 21st.
Business days.
Okay, yeah, I know.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So the 10th day would be the 5th.
Of December.
Yes.
December 5th.
From the 21st?
Business days, right?
No.
Then
But
never
just
mind.
give
That
me
would
the
be-
22nd to do what you say. So let's count the 23rd as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So you could have it. I'm not available on the, well, if you had it late enough, you could do the 3rd. You had in the past talked about the night before the meeting. I have something at 7 on the 11th. If you had it earlier, I could help. That a couple years ago, you had established that as your public hearing date.
What, the 11th?
The night before, the Wednesday night before your meeting, which doesn't give anybody much time to sleep. I don't, but it's what you did.
I like the week of the first week in December, just because it does give us that extra week. If that's possible, if people are
Wait, the
open,
5th?
Yes,
like that week, I mean, anytime, but just.
say at what date time?
I
Yeah,
think we
It's
have
gonna
to
be
do
6 o'clock,
an evening,
6
right?
o'clock.
On the 5th or the 4th?
4th or the 5th?
I can't do 6 on either. I'm really booked this time of year. I could do, I could do 6 or a little after on the 3rd. Did that give us 10 days?
On December.
Steve, go ahead.
December 2nd and 3rd and 4th, this room is gonna be indisposed. We're doing the carpeting here.
Okay.
Okay.
So if you wanna do it on that date, we could potentially look at another
We'll have to
location.
find
but-
another location.
Okay. Maybe the multi-purpose room at the school.
The one night I'm free is the 10th.
Okay.
The 10th.
I'm not available that day. It's the winter concert at the high school.
Huh.
I mean, the 10th is fine for me.
If it's okay.
The 10th would be a Tuesday. And we're thinking 6 PM.
Yeah. Knowing that Catherine is not available.
I'm not available. I mean, I would really like, I mean, so we ruled out the first week in December. Is that a no-go?
No,
Not necessarily.
Well, it can be somewhere else.
somewhere
Just
else.
can't be-
Tara, are
What
you
about the
available
5th?
on the 3rd?
I'm available on the 3rd at 6, or it may be a little bit after. I have something at 5.
Okay.
I'm not, it could even be 7 that I could be available at 7. I could commit to 7 on the 3rd.
Any other evening in the first week of December, Tara?
No,
No,
it's a tough time of year with everybody doing zoning amendments and,
Right.
yes,
So it's the 3rd or the 10th right now.
yes.
I mean, I might be able to make 6, but I can't promise it on the 3rd.
It's also Friday night.
Maybe do we start it at 6:30 and then Tara joins in or something on the 3rd?
That's not a bad idea.
That's a compromise, yes.
I could, I might be able to make, there's a good chance I can make 6:30.
Okay.
Is the staff in on Fridays?
Yeah, the town's open on Fridays.
So just want to make sure that if I get something to the staff on the 22nd, it can be posted the 22nd.
Oh, of November.
November
22nd.
22nd, yeah.
Because we're counting Saturday, the 23rd as one of the, is where we count number 1. So if we
Everything-
have it on the 3rd, I'll get it to the staff to post on the 22nd, and it has to get posted the 22nd.
I think the 3rd at 6:30, finding an alternate location is not a bad option.
Yeah,
It's a good option.
If we can find an alternate location.
Right.
I just, so I don't.
Mike, do you have any inkling on the school side of things, if we could use that?
We have the.
Say that again.
Purpose room now. They don't use the multi-purpose.
Oh, sweet.
The town has that in the evenings.
Okay, the town has it in the evenings. All right,
Okay,
so we
we'll
could.
move it to the multi-purpose room, if that's okay.
All right,
Does
so
everybody
here we
feel-
go, December 3rd at 6:30, multi-purpose room.
Public-
You don't have any balance on your account.
If they don't have
I do
something.
believe that there is mention on the system, but I will have to inform our governing body about this, so that this will prevent from happening.
Mike, could
Mike,
you
mute.
mute that, please?
I did.
Thank you.
Kiwi,
Do we want a backup date?
public hearing.
Okay.
The
It's
6th?
Not a bad idea.
The 6th.
Did I hear 12/9 being discussed at all? That's Monday.
You did not hear it discussed.
Tara, were you available on the 9th of December?
I have a 6 o'clock that could go a couple hours, so not really.
Okay.
10th, Catherine wasn't.
Number 10.
Okay, 10 is the alternate. Backup day.
And the time, 6
On the backup day?
on the 10th, yeah.
Sure. I'm speaking for everybody, but I don't mean to.
No one's. Okay. Tara, does that work for you, a backup date?
Yeah, I don't have anything. I had something moved out of that date.
Okay.
Okay.
So when we do the calendar review, we can circle back.
Right. So then site plan, we're doing on the 21st of November, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
Site plan,
and
Booker and Pond, and
a couple other things.
the zoning change.
Okay.
So that's the 21st of November at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yes, for the special meeting.
Okay.
And I have to leave at 11, just saying.
Okay.
Okay,
The correspondence, yeah.
Yes, very exciting.
here's people.
There's a newsletter from Grafton County Conservation District. Visit On-Farm Climate Resilience Project. So if anyone wants to read it.
You have a copy.
Okay.
Yep,
great. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Committee report.
Yes, so Town Core Working Group, there were really three things. First was lighting. There had been a question, the lights that we have in town currently that aren't working, the solar ones, they no longer make them anymore. That's why we, had the color option. So we just wanted to make it clear because a lot of people do like what we have, but that wasn't an option. So I wanted to get that out there. We're still kind of waiting to see how we do for, through the winter. With what we have.
It looks like they'll be great.
As our options, yeah, so hopefully. The survey results from the priorities from the pedestrian study, we're up to 152 respondents, which is great, with 70 comments from our residents. We're going to keep it up for one more month. And then the third thing we talked about was the Boulder Path road work. There were two options, option 3A and option 1A. We would end up bonding both of them. So
What is
we're
it?
still working on that. It's basically to help with the drainage issues and all of that. Both of the plans jump in here, Mark, about to eliminate the, or help with the drainage issues that we've had. So one plan had the pedestrian path staying on the east side. So if you're looking down Boulder Path on the right side, and the other plan had it more or less staying the same. Both plans would address the drainage issues, but one was significantly more expensive.
The biggest
400,000 more.
difference is both of them have granite curbing on both sides of the road, the entire length of the road. So the setup would either be on the west side, the left side as you're driving towards the tennis courts. And it would be directly adjacent to the roadway with a granite curb, look just like from Village Road to the bridge. Same setup. The other thing, the other way would be on the east side, on the golf course, tennis court side, the entire length. So starting at Snowsbrook Road, Valley Road intersection, all the way up to BBTS would be all on the right-hand side, tennis court side. And again, directly adjacent to the roadway and with granite curb.
We asked for artist renditions, kind of what that would look like because of the cost difference, because one is really moving the road a lot, which was, you know, more.
We'll see if we can, what we can get with that. You can't really render a road, but we'll try to get something that gives us more of a vision of the profile. It's so it basically is the multi-use path, granite curb, roadway, granite curb on the other side. And those granite curbs are designed to have the drainage structures along them so that we can move the stormwater off the surface of the road.
That's it.
Yeah, it's gonna look like a city street.
No, it'll look like between Village Road and the bridge.
Yeah.
It'll be a foot wide multi-use path directly adjacent to the road. It's not gonna look much different than what's there now. It's just gonna drain properly. And
It's gonna have a granite curb.
it's going to, and it will have granite curbing, but the reveal on that's only about 3 inches. It's not a 6-foot tall granite curb. There's no walls.
And
Okay,
we
so
talked about how to plow that.
look at Valley, yeah, and that's why Public Safety and Public Works recommends the east side, the golf clubhouse side
Right.
of the road, a single path going up, because it is easier to maintain. We've reviewed both plans with Craig. He concurs that the east side is fine if that's what the town wants to do. And there will be, you know, trees will be replaced, removed if they're dead, replaced. The gazebo, Craig has talked about moving the gazebo out towards the road, the one that's over by the tubing area. It can all be landscaped appropriately. So I don't think there's visually gonna be a lot of impact, because we already have that big open space, right?
Yeah.
So.
I think one thing you might wanna just consider is the safety from getting hit by a golf ball.
Well, Craig is weighing in on that, and he, you know, like I said, he doesn't feel that there's any issue even if we moved it over.
I mean, you have the
He
risk,
said, because the road's not gonna stay where it is. The road's gonna move over. And then so where pavement is not gonna change. It's just gonna be rearranged. So the road gets moved over and the multi-use path gets put down. So we're not going further into the golf course.
no, I know that, but as somebody who's hit a ball occasionally over across the street, Like I generally wait until people aren't walking over there. But you have that risk on both sides of the road,
We have
actually.
them both.
There's a T box on that side and a T box on this side. There's nothing you can do about it.
Margaret, you had it.
Yeah, so there's a
Turn it off.
version, there is a curb.
Yes, on
On
both
both
sides of the road in both versions, there's,
And the
Yeah,
east side.
5 minutes, I'm gonna tell him I'm done.
road.
because you gotta move the road.
Mike, you're not on mute.
There's more base work to do, and that's why it's more expensive. Did you have a question?
I did, you answered it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Town core group, we have
That
any,
is the town.
that's, we've done on that, okay. So the Conservation Commission, we've already spoke about what they did here today, and their next meeting is December 4. And we're gonna move on to the calendar review. Our next meeting. Well, we have a bunch of different meetings, but the next main meeting is December 12. We're gonna have one November 21. And we're looking at December 3 at 6:30 p.m. We're all agreeing on those meetings?
11/21 special meeting at 8 AM. 12/3 public hearing
Yeah.
at 6:30. Backup 12/10 at 6. And then regular meeting 12/11.
Isn't it December 12?
12/12.
12/12, not 12/11.
Yeah.
Sorry.
At 8 AM on that one.
Would you email all of those dates out, please?
I can email it to you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody want to make a motion?
I move,
Oh, wait a minute.
Last meeting, we said we were gonna discuss in the future. C1 in village commercial. We don't have time in December. Like to know if we're gonna have it on the January or even February agenda.
I will put it on.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes, Mark.
No, no.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think we need to always keep that in there and check to discuss it, so. I feel like we haven't quite finished that.
No, we haven't.
Okay, so any other thoughts, comments? Now you can make a motion.
Okay, move to adjourn this meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
aye.
Thank you everyone for coming. Thank you, James.